Abdullahi min shaitan rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wa sadat tabi'ina wa ulama amilina wa a'imma arba'a mujtahideen wa muqallideen ila yawm ad-din wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of the Soullutionz podcast. Alhamdulillah. I am one of the hosts. Amir Khalil Abdullahi, uh, Imam Muhammad Abdullah Ameen, Al Maliki, Al Shadali, Al Ashri, and my brother Ustad Saleh Abdul Mujeeb. Tonight's topic is going to be, with regards to knowledge generally. We're going to speak on knowledge in general. And the topic, I want to have more like now we're going to talk about some of the benefits, like with regards to like those things I mentioned. Wa alaikum salam rahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Those things that I mentioned with regards to hadiths and things like that. But more so, knowledge that will benefit us as a group of people, as an ethnic group of Muslims within the United States, right? Or in the West. Or it could benefit others in other places, but or anyone at other places that have similar situations. So one of the first thing I just want to mention to start off with about knowledge is that societies have been built based off of learning, right? So like, they say you cannot start a industrial revolution without an intellectual revolution, right? So knowledge should be revolutionary. It should be galvanizing. It should be moving people and mobilizing people. If you go back and you look at the seerah of the Prophet Sallallahu, and this is something that's very important to us, you know, uh, in our Islamic diaspora, this is something that's extremely important to us, you know, is that you have to make a lot of reference back to seerah of the Prophet Sallallahu, because oftentimes we'll read about like the backgrounds of different scholars and things of that nature and get motivated. You'll be like, oh man, he memorized the Quran when he was 4 years old. Be like, yeah, you know what? I may not be able to do it, but I'm gonna make sure Ibn memorized the Quran at 4. But however, when it comes to the knowledge of knowing about the Prophet Sallallahu and how Islam was implemented, how it grew, those things, we kind of like, it's kind of foggy and very vague for us. And we're pretty much sometimes left to figure it out on our own. If that's a good way to say it, you're kind of like trying to figure it out on your own. And so then what happens is, we don't let the knowledge work for us. And then sometimes we have an idea that knowledge is like supposed to be in a classroom setting. And, if you grew up in America and you go to inner city schools, you didn't really have the best relationship with your teachers. Not everybody loves school, things of that nature. Some people will graduate through school because they just push you through, to get through, to get the numbers up and, to elevate the statistics. However, your comprehension levels are very low, understanding and things of that nature. I think I was watching a video, as YouTuber. He's from the Caribbean. He goes around in the Caribbean. He asks people questions and stuff like that. And he was asking some of the most simplest information, but the people really didn't have no comprehension. He started asking about what was it about gosh, I forgot. Ovulation, women's ovulation and stuff like that. And these guys came with some old off the wall understanding of what ovulation was. So you have people that, they're lacking in that basic knowledge. And so for a lot of us, we're kind of like self-taught, and study. And this also comes down from some of our ancestors, some of us, who are younger, under 50 and under, some of our old heads, they were always, you got to have knowledge of self. You got to be able to read. You got to read, and and encouraging a person to be self-taught. And self-study is not a problem. Self-taught is not a problem, but true understanding and guidance is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the reality of it, right? However, you have people that they go through those phases, and we take on that same characteristics. And then, then we also have that syndrome where you have that old phrase, the one-eyed man is king in the land of the blind. So you may have your imam or ustad teacher, they may be more knowledgeable than you, but they only string you along us just to take you up to a certain point, and then they cut you off, right? That's been our experience, right? All of the Islamic institutions that are being built, within the borders of the United States, many of them are not focused, or focused in catering, to the indigenous people of the land, right? You have people you'll have people from, wherever that, people of knowledge, and they'll come and they'll establish, a learning center, amongst their, their fellow countrymen and things of that nature. Now, there's a couple ways that I also have a viewpoint on that. Maybe later on I'll mention that, inshallah. But there's a couple ways I view that. It can be somewhat our own problem, right? It could be somewhat our own problem, lacking in that area, but that's another topic of discussion. However, they're establishing that, and we seem to be comfortable in being in a victim mode. We're comfortable being a victim, right? What do I mean by that? We'll build everybody else the same way our ancestors built America for free, right? We'll build everybody else, endorse our own plans. But if someone from amongst us, whom we are familiar with, whom we know, steps up to it, they may even excel in knowledge and things of that nature, but we don't stand behind them and support them, right? We won't support that. But everybody sits around, and have this dream of going overseas to a distant land and so on and so forth, to go there, and then I'm going to get all of the knowledge, and I'm going to come back and give dawah to my people. Well, the Sahabas weren't like this. And this is where it's referenced back to Sirah. The Prophet ﷺ, the first surah that was revealed to us was Iqra, right? And what you'll find in Mecca, the first establishment was Dar Akram, right? The house of Akram. That's where everybody used to congregate at in order to learn. And people would come to Mecca in order to learn from the Prophet ﷺ, right? So therefore, this is an indication for us. We need to begin with learning. But however, we sometimes in our mind, we have like this, we want to be institutionalized, or we start romanticizing and fantasizing about, or we're in our mind, we're competing. We have a competitor, a competition. We'll be competing with the mega church, right? In our minds. We'll be competing with the biggest masjid, or we'll be competing with the, an immigrant community, or we'll be competing with this community or that community. There's no motivation unless there's an ops. You have some kind of opposition right there next to you, right? And so then what happens is, with this in mind, if we don't have the money and the resources, we fall back, right? We fall back, we get discouraged. We don't want to do it now. I'll just save up my money to go overseas. And there's plenty of brothers I know that they leave and they're not prepared. They're not studying. They're not thorough in studying before they leave to go overseas. And so then what you have is they spend thousands of dollars just to go over there and hang out in the marketplace, like pretty much what they be doing here. And so when they come back, they can't benefit you none, because most of the time that they're struggling and learning over there, so when they come back here, of course, that one-eyed man is king in the land of the blind, right? So then they're able to, pronounce Arabic a certain way, and yeah, I need this, and yeah, I need that, and they can't, they really can't really articulate or teach you anything. And know for a certainty that when a person can't articulate, if you cannot articulate what you believe in, then you have doubt about what you believe in, because all you need is someone that's more fluent than you to come along, and they'll sway your position and you'll change. That has been the diaspora. That has been the culture and the practice within the borders of the United States. That's what it's been. Whoever comes in with the loudest voice, that's who everybody follows. And then the next louder voice comes in, then everybody goes that way. And then another one comes in and it goes that way. You never see enclaves or communities of people establish themselves. When they're on, it's very few communities that you see and it has continuity, right? That's the thing that we lack, within our communities, is continuity, right? We don't have continuity with our families. We don't care about families. We'll throw a family away, right? Throw them away. The same way we'll throw away a teacher. We'll throw away Imam. People will be with the Imam, you turn their back, be like, yo, what happened? Why you ain't with the Imam no more? He doesn't pronounce the Fatiha correctly. Or, they'll find the most minute thing that they can find. Wa alaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. They'll find the most minute thing to turn their back, right? Our marriage is in shambles because if our wife get mad, she wants to khula tomorrow, right? You didn't bring her home no French fries, and then you start remembering you ain't got more money than me. You ain't got enough money than me. I want out of here. You don't teach me. We ain't having classes anyway, but now I'm gonna blame you for not teaching me. Meanwhile, while I sat there the whole time, I was fine without you teaching me anything, but now you done made me mad, so now I'm gonna point it out. You ain't teaching me, and I want out. Right? So these things are happening. We're wondering why our children are dying in the streets, right? We're not creating an Islamic atmosphere for our children. I was talking to the brothers earlier, and I mentioned that, if you look at our children, right? If they look at our children, and this is one statement that Malcolm made, Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, rahmatullahi alayhi, Malcolm X, he made that it always stuck with me as a youth. He said only a fool will allow his enemy to educate his children, right? And if you look at, a lot of people, when you mention the name of Adolf Hitler, everybody's like, oh no, he was wicked. He's a killer and this, that, and the third. The one thing that Adolf Hitler did, if you ever read about his biography, I was a bit of a nerd a little bit. So if you ever read about Adolf Hitler, one of the things that Adolf Hitler did, why he was so successful in turning Germany, is because he educated the kids. His soldiers was the youth. It wasn't the old heads. Old heads going to put up resistance. It's hard to change old folks. Right? He's stubborn. Right? But young people are impressionable. And you can plant that ideology in there, or some mobilization to move them, right? So anyway, so if you look at our situation, and I can name our situation, but I mentioned it today. I said, the same problems we faced as children, when we as Muslims put our children in there under the kuffar, thumb, right? Is the only thing they're facing the same thing we're facing. It's just that they got on thobes and kufis. We had on baseball caps and Timbs. That's the only difference, right? So, they're still under the same scrutiny, especially the indigenous amongst us, right? They're still under that same scrutiny. Some of them hear words from their teachers that's discouraging them, telling them they ain't gonna be this or they ain't gonna be that, and so on and so forth. And as one of the brothers made a point earlier, is that if you look at the age of the teachers don't even care no more. Right? Some teachers losing their jobs. Some teachers will fight your children. The same way your bad behind children is trying to fight the teacher too, though. Right? And so you look at this thing. It's a system of failure, and then we're turning around. Don't look at nobody else. We're not going to talk about the immigrant community, nobody else. But you look in our communities. Islam is not really, really doing our family no good. We have like this thing of we accept bare minimum. We're good with the bare minimum, right? That's why you had some people that, people used to literally sit in the masjid and say, this isn't back in the day, I don't want to be knowledgeable because I don't want to be accountable. Ignorance is bliss. Only a fool would think like that, because our deen and our way to our pathway to guidance, right, is our belief in us doing amal salih. You can't do better unless you know better, right? So it's absolute foolishness. If you look at most of our family structure isn't set up based on what you see of the Prophet Sallallahu. Most people can't even tell you how the Prophet Sallallahu was with his wives. The only thing that most people seem to say, and they're exaggerating it when they're saying this, well, brothers could do things for themselves because the Prophet, he cooked and cleaned. The Hadith said he mended his own shoes and did his own clothes, right? But we'll run with that and make that, make that the standard. Like, I ain't doing nothing, which is no problem. Well, it's a problem, but it's not a problem. But look at how we exaggerate things and attribute things to the Prophet sallallahu, right? We're so argumentative and combative, but we don't even have like solid knowledge. We can't put things in its proper context. That's also a sign of a person that benefit and have beneficial knowledge, is that they can put things in its proper context and move forward with it. And people are on a path. We hate structure because we live most of our life in chaos. So when you're talking about structure, when you got a household, right? You ever see a person, a person that lived by an Islamic household, and usually the person that don't like structure, what's one of the first things they criticize? I don't like how your husband talk to you. Why you got to be in the house when he get to be in the house after dark? Why you got to do this? I don't like that. Why you always got to take care? Why you got to always be with your wife? Why you got to be with your family? Why you got to take your family everywhere? Things of that nature. We don't like structure. But Islam promotes that type of structure. How many hadiths you read where the Prophet ﷺ was with his family? How do we know about how the Prophet ﷺ used to like to, joke and play with his family? How do we know about how the Sahabas, they say, Ya Rasulullah, when we with you, we feel a certain way, with our iman, but when we go home to our families, it's like we love the dunya, and we're not the same, right? How do we know about these things? Because these men and women, they were with their family. So there's examples. How do you know about kissing your children, especially for men, right? Kissing your children on the forehead and things of that nature, playing with your children, right? How do you know that these things are signs of mercy and compassion? Because we learned that from the Prophet sallallahu. But if you don't structure your family and set your family up according to that, usually most of us are married miserable. Can't keep our hands off each other. You married to somebody, you say you love them, but you talk down on them. Talk to them like a dog, worse than a dog. People first of all, Muslims ain't supposed to have dogs, right? You got a dog, let the dog lick you all in your mouth and your face and everything, but your wife, you ready to spit on her. You ain't cook my food, you ain't warm up my food. You know what? I'll just get me another sister. Oh, you know what I'm saying? Or, same thing with the woman. She shows no gratitude and appreciation. The gratitude don't benefit the man. It does, but it actually benefits you. It actually benefits you as the person. The same thing. Providing for your family don't really benefit you in the same way that it benefits your family, but it actually benefits you because why? You're getting the reward, the thawab for it. So therefore, a lot of people, their motivation when they're doing, they're looking for either some kind of quid pro quo, right, or some sort of dunya type of game. So therefore, they can't humble themselves. You can't tell them nothing. Most of us love our jahiliyyah. We love our days of ignorance more than we love Islam, right? So and that was what we make reference to. So these are the type of things that we're experiencing and that we run into as a people that's struggling. But then also at the same time, everybody will gain benefit off of us, but nobody wants to benefit us. How many generations we going to keep going where we're not producing our own Quran reciters? There's people that have been 20, 30 years in Islam and still can't read one alif out of the Quran. One. We won't sacrifice the money in order to learn, right? You don't lose money. You actually gain barakah, and Allah increases it when you spending it fi sabilillah. But because our minds aren't that way, we're kind of like, alhamdulillah, I'm Muslim. That's all that matters. But when you Muslim, you got to do Muslim things. And one of the signs and the hallmark of Muslims in America was knowledge or is knowledge. But most of us today are dumber than a box of rocks. Other than assalamu alaikum, right? You want to look cool. You think you cool, you be able to say Kifa Halik Sheikh, right? You cool when you can do that. But outside of that, once that goes, yeah, man, the John, blah, 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 right? It's almost like we're creating a two-faced person. And as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Sharrun nasi dhul wajhain. The worst of people is the one with two faces. Well, why was the munafiq so despised? Because they pretended with one face that they believe and they were with the believers, but in reality, they were with the disbelievers. Many of our dispositions is in that, is in that direction. We're one way with the deen when we, when other people are around, but when the light's out, we change into someone else. And we don't see nothing wrong with that because why? There's no knowledge-based reference. So therefore, our bad behavior, we don't have a problem with behaving, misbehaving or behaving in a bad manner, right? Why? Because we don't have a reference point of knowledge. We just think what I feel is good. We think our deen is based on logic. That's why people misunderstand what madhabs are, the schools of thought. They misunderstand it. Why? Because you think things is just based off of, this sounded right. Yeah, this sounded good right here. So this is what we're gonna do because this sounds real good. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Then we start making things haram that ain't haram, and we start making things halal that ain't halal, and whatever satisfies our nafs, that's what we go towards. So we don't gain the true benefit from our knowledge. If you find yourself still doing the same thing you were doing before you were Muslim, something's wrong. If you find yourself still doing and comfortable doing it, doing the same thing you were doing before you were Muslim, or if you find yourself doing the same exact thing that the kuffar do, and your reference is, I justify because of this, that, and the third, right? Like you find now very popular now, a lot of Muslims are leaning on psychology, right? They're utilizing leaning on psychology, something heavy, right? This is my last point. I'm gonna bring the brothers in. But when it comes to Islam, you're argumentative to it. But when it comes to the DSM books, the books that the psychologist makes reference to, or that knowledge when you go to school, right? How many people you'll see, they'll go to school, put in hard work to go to school to gain employment, which is not a problem. But when it comes to deen, they don't understand the deen. And I, me, myself, I'm a person who went to school. I've seen Muslims in the classroom where I even debated against Muslims as well as my fellow classmates, where they had beliefs that was contrary to the beliefs of the Muslims, and they argued on behalf, right? Saying it needs to be reformed, right? Where does most of the intellectual movements in America start, like transgenderism and things of that nature? It starts in the schools and the universities. And a lot of the stuff, falls under psychology. That's where the beginning starts at. So I'm going to stop here. I'll jump back on in a little bit. I'm going to let the brothers come in, inshallah, and do their thing, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. I'm going to stay on, but, I'm right here in the cut.
Muhammad, you want to go on? All right, I guess I'll go on. Forgive me, y'all. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Imam Khalil, excuse me.
Nah.
I'm tearing these smoothie Skittles up. Go get them. Smoothie joints, man. They busting, man.
Hey, if y'all listening right now, you benefiting, give us a like, thumbs up, heart, something, inshallah. Don't just let it go by, because that helps increase the algorithm and more people can benefit as well. Share these topics to your platforms, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum.
Imam Khalil brought up some good points. But what I did, I wanted to take notes, and this is something I have to do too for myself. So I can, kind of stay on traffic, on topic, and be able to bounce back and forth. One point that you made, Imam Khalil, that you said that the bare minimum only matters to us, right? And I totally understand. I agree with you to the aspect that the bare minimum matters when it comes to spirituality. We don't want to grow spiritually, right? But when it comes to dunya, we constantly want more, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what in the Quran, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhaakumut takathur hatta zurtumul maqabir, right? That we constantly trying to acquire things of the dunya until we reach the grave. We just want more and more and more and more and more. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that in the Quran. Right? So when it comes to dunya, we constantly on this rat chase of trying to get something, right? But when it comes to spiritual growth, we don't, the old saying that used to say that it's hard to look yourself in the mirror. Right? When you look yourself in the mirror, you got to evaluate who you were, how bad you were. What's this? These things I need to change. Who do I need to become? Right? And we have the pathway. The road is paved on the destination we need to go. And we have the examples of the people that, by the people, the companions and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have these people as examples to who we need to be, right? To the best of our ability, right? Because we're going to fall short. So we have these examples, but it's us that, stops us because look at our company, right? Look at our company. And the reason why we constantly keep bad company, not just for our own desires, but bad deeds do not go unpunished in this culture that we are living in now. It's praiseworthy, right? Where if you see a sister, right, struggling for, to uncover, which me personally, I stopped giving excuses of uncovering and brothers coming out of jail, checking their kufis in, and sisters, getting upset or divorcing and then uncovering. I stopped making excuses for that. It's not a struggle because we struggle every day. When we're trying to get that bread, you may not want to go to work, but you get your butt up to go to work every single day to get what you need to get. Why don't we do that with our akhirah? Right? So I stopped making excuses for that because it's not a struggle. Right? It's not a struggle. It's just that it goes unpunished in this society now, where if a woman, a sister uncovers, right, and she start wearing her hair out, you will see sisters praising her for disobedience. So you're praising someone for disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And now, back then, like, Imam Khalil and Ahmed was talking about back then how, if you was in high school or in school and you were selling drugs, the drug dealers will push you off the corner. Now we encourage the shenanigans, right? And I'm from a different generation where the old heads gave me anything I wanted, right? I need this, or I'm gonna do what I want. And then on top of that, I was a mean little terrible little young guy. So I'm gonna do what I want, and whatever consequences come, what you gonna do about it? A'udhu billah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect any of us for having that, that mentality. But nothing goes unpunished anymore. And that's one of the problems we had, another problem that we are having. And the second thing that Imam Khalil said, he said, what families are, right? And my thing is that families does not consist of mother and father anymore. To even be real with y'all, let's be real. We're going into marriage not to create families anymore. We're going into marriages now, which is not a bad. You want to control your desires, mashallah. But it has to be some foundation too. We only going in, we just thinking with a yada mean and a yada yada mean. You know what I mean? That's the only thing we're thinking about. Halal sex. Because then once that spark is gone, after that, that little shaboing boing we've been doing, we're talking about a kulat 3 weeks later, after the honeymoon stage. Because nothing else we had in common. We don't talk about deen, right? Because none of us really are trying to learn, as Imam Khalil said, we're not really trying to learn a religion. So we don't have nothing in common. And if none of us got the bag or got something that could bring more excitement in, such as let's go travel, let's go do this, let's go buy this, the marriage is going to be trash. So now you see us at a rate of, it says statistic-wise, Last year, it was 78% of Islamic marriages are failing now. Are failing Islamic marriages. If we look around right now, we know more people divorced than we know more people staying together for 10, 15 years. All right. And it's not impermissible to divorce, but just think about it. We know more people divorced than people staying together. People staying together, you're like, wow, y'all been together how long? Ooh, alhamdulillah. And then you look in the circle like, dang, I've been divorced 6 times. I've been divorced 5 times. I've been divorced 6 times, right? These are problems because a lot of times we're not going into marriages trying to make marriages work, right? So the family really only consists of, when you think of a family, it's mother and child, right? A mother could come in right now, and I'm talking to all the mothers who are here watching, right? And I don't want y'all to give me this cliche stuff. Don't, right? Some mothers may be good with it, some others won't, but I want y'all to really speak. Do y'all really mind a man that's not their child father to come in and chastise the kids? I want y'all to answer that in the comments. Right? Chastise. Especially that little baby you love, because you know that your parents are, oh, just me, it's about me and my kids. Okay, now if a man comes in and your kids are disobedient, he's like, look, man, you can't be doing that, and he's disciplining them. And he may yell, he may bark on them. Would you accept that? Right? Other than that, marriages only consist of mother and child now. Because a man now is degraded to the point where he's very minute. You don't even care about having a man in. We see it all the time. I don't need a man. I could do bad by myself. I could do this. And these are sisters saying this. Right? These are Muslim sisters saying this. Right? And I'm not, like I said, I'm not pointing against y'all, but somewhere down the line, we got to start talking to each other. The men, as you see, we're talking about, oh yeah, I was talking to the brothers earlier. You hear the brothers talking about each other, about problems that we are having, that we're suffering from. And we're encouraging each other to do better. How often is our sisters doing that with each other? This is a problem, right? And then the last thing he spoke of, or Imam Khalil spoke of, he said that we have to acquire knowledge, right? That the reason why we're in the stage we are in now is due to us lack of knowledge, right? Not acquiring knowledge. One, we could say we're not acquiring proper knowledge. The next, I would say, on top of that, is that we don't have taqwa. We don't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because everybody, according to the, we live in a society now where the mass majority of the African American communities are either default Salafi or coming from the NOI or the branches of the Wafdi Muhammad. So let's talk about Ahl Sunnah, right? Or let's talk about Salafis, right? We want to talk about Salafis because my thing when it comes to Wafdi Muhammad, the Wafdi Muhammad's and the NOIs is a little bit different than anybody else's. I believe something else, but that's neither here or there of now. But let's talk about the Salafis, right? Their whole religion is based on prohibitions. What is haram? What is haram? What is not? What is halal? What is haram? This is haram. 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 That's haram. That's haram. So you know what you're not supposed to be doing. What are you supposed to be doing? Right? So they know about the knots. But since we're in a society that we grew up in the inner city, we grew up on F the police, right? We go against authority. We don't care about authority. So your religion is based upon what not to do. You're going to go against that because we oppose authority. We don't care about authority. No matter what you say, we're going against it. We're going against it, right? And that's what we lack taqwa, right? We lack it. We lack it. Because if we had taqwa, we would treat every day as if it's our last. Right? You would think twice about going back to the street, brothers. You would think twice, this is just because you had a messed up marriage, whoop-de-doo-da-day, that you should disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You would think twice about that because you're not sure if you're going to make it the next day. And you may die in a state that you could die in a state of kufr. Who want to die in a state of kufr? If you want to die in a state of kufr, why take your shahada? If you're going to go against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam laid down, the foundation that he laid down. If you're going to go against it, what's the point of you taking shahada? To men and female, what was the point? If we're going to die and they say the kufr, and we don't care, because if we cared, we would try to be better than what we was. Half of us been in prison, half of us been through all type of obstacles in our life, right? We know what it is back there. Why go back there? Either we're super stupid or we don't care. We like flirting with kufr.
Might be a little bit of both.
It might be a little bit of both. Go ahead, explain yourself, Imam Khalil.
Well, it says kind of like because the thing is that they say that youth is parallel with insanity. But I gotta give my man a shout out. Walaikum salam, Abdul Kabir Muhammad Al Maliki. All right. But anyway, they say youth is tantamount or close to to insanity because you do things without thinking. But it was fun, right? People usually do that, and sometimes as Muslims, we haven't matured. That's why usually sometimes you don't find us, we still have a immature way of thinking, an immature mind, because we're not nourishing that mind and fertilizing it so that it'll grow. And as it grow, it produces, either good fruit or bitter fruit. How can you produce bitter fruit from knowledge? Right? It reminds me of a statement that Sheikh Uthman says, Taqaddamullah bi rahmati Ameen. He says that the arrogant person, right, in knowledge with knowledge, not if he's arrogant, the more knowledge you pour onto that arrogance, the more he grow in his arrogance, right? And his knowledge doesn't benefit him none, right? And there's also another reason why Sheikh Uthman and Fodio, he says that to show humility to an arrogant person does that arrogant person a disservice, right? Because you only help him and increase him and stroking his ego. Arrogant people love for their egos to be stroked. They want you to tell them, yeah, you the sheikh. If it wasn't for you, such and such and such. And it increases them in their arrogance, right? And they don't gain benefit from that. So this is how one is negligent. That feeling, they're looking for that feeling. And a lot of us chase that feeling the same way that a smoker, chases that first experience when they got high, right? I talked to a person who smoked crack. They said, yo, you basically just chasing that first hit. You want to get high again, But I want to segue into something else. More so what needs to be established, what needs to be studied, right? You need studies on two ends. You need studies on two ends. It seems that we can't seem to bring the two together, right? I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. You need those things that motivate you. There's some people that when they talk and they teach you, they talk to your heart. They motivate you, right? And then there's also those that when they teach you, they illuminate you. They bring about light, and awaken you, give you insight, right? You start automatically, your mind starts working because you hear things, right? You're learning from someone that's breathing life into the soul, and then motivating you to move towards those things that are better. And ultimately, the goal is to reach and obtain Jannah. So you have two types of learning. You have the one that the teacher that's lecturing your soul and telling you those things and reminding you those things of Allah Ta'ala and what Allah says in the Quran and what the Prophet ﷺ says in the Hadith. And then the other one, the other type of teacher you have is the one that's helping you protect yourself and your heart from deviancy and corruption, right? And also protecting the deen, right? And so then you'll have that, and you always every area, every enclave, village, sector, the city, masjid, you have to have someone there that's teaching you, calling you to Tawbah, teaching you about ayats in the Quran, how the Sahaba were this, and things about the life of the Prophet Sallallahu. And then also you must have that faqih in that same area that's teaching you about the do's and the don'ts of the deen. You have to have that. Without the two, your society, your community, it won't grow, and you won't grow as an individual. You'll make gruesome mistakes because you have no reference point. You can't just pick a random ayat like shaking dice, pick a random ayat out of the Quran and like, yo, I'm gonna give an explanation on it today. Our deen is always passed down because you take it from someone who took it from someone who took it from someone, and it, and it traces back. It has its chain and its connection of authenticity. All right. So therefore, when you get to the sciences now, in general body of lectures, you take that, you have plenty of people that are charismatic, they're motivational, they'll call you towards good, they'll tell you about Allah Ta'ala, they'll tell you about the Prophet Sallallahu, right? But as for the other person, the other type of teacher, right? They're not only, like I said, they're helping you remove doubt from your heart, but um they're also helping you also preserve the deen by means of you learning those things that are necessary for you to learn, right? How do you get your dawah program? And I remember all the years we used to sit, have meetings, yo, how we're going to give dawah. We're going to buy 1,000 pamphlets. We're going to give out copies of Qur'ans and so on and so forth. But one of the true dawah effort is that you're teaching the person the first thing first is that which is necessary for them, right? Those things that are individually obligated upon them, right? So here's your curriculum if you're taking notes. The first thing that's necessary for you to learn is those things which is necessary for you to know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with regards to Tawheed, right? You have to learn those things from the principles that, you have to learn the relationship between the creation and the creator. You have to understand those attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You have to learn those things that are obligatory for you to believe with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You have to learn those things that are, I really don't want to use this word because you always usually have to qualify it because people kind of like go to church on you, but those things that are possible or permissible for you to believe with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the third thing, those things that are impossible with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll give you an example of all three. We have to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mawjood, that he's existing, right? That's mandatory for you to believe about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The thing that's impossible or is impermissible for with regards to Allah ta'ala is non-existence. It's impossible. Non-existence is unthought of. It's impermissible for you to believe this about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so on and so forth. So it's codified, and what you learn from this is the very gist of the Quran, where Allah ta'ala is vindicating himself. That's why if you look at Surah Al-Ikhlas, everybody knows it because it's one of the shortest surahs that, most people, that's the only surah they know after the Fatiha, right? Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Say, He Allah Ta'ala is one, right? Or as it's translated as, but ahad is not in the numerical sense, but it's unique, right? Separating Allah Ta'ala from creation. The plurality of other gods, right? It's a separating Allah Ta'ala from that. Allahu Samad. His word is impacted, is impacted, but self-sufficient, not relying upon creation. He's ghaniyan, right? He's independent, free from a samad is impregnated with all of that meaning. Then the negation, lam yalid wa lam yulad, right? He's not begotten. He's not, not born, or what is it? Begotten, nor is he, what is it? I forgot the translation, but I understand the Arabic. He's not born, nor is he, he's like, gosh, what's the word I want to use? I can't remember the
He's
word.
neither born or does he give birth.
Does give birth, right? Exactly. So, Allah Ta'ala, he's vindicating, he's negating, right? When you become Muslim, what are you doing when you become Muslim? La ilaha illallah. It begins with a negation. Muhammad Rasulullah, right? So it begins with a negation and also has an affirmation. So then you learn, you learn those things after that, that Allah Ta'ala doesn't resemble creation. Allah's the first without a beginning. He's the ending without an ending. And so on and so forth. This is what you're responsible for in learning. Then you learn about the prophets, right? What do you believe about the prophets? That they're trustworthy, they're truthful, right? They marry, divorce, they eat and drink, they get sick like, other people get sick, and so on and so forth. These things are all, this is what you learn, about the prophets. And then be concerned with the semi'at, those things that you hear about, like the paradise, the punishment in the grave, the ni'mah, the blessing in the grave, right? The scale, the wazn al-amal, the scale of weighing actions, right? When you do, because when you know about these things, when you think about it, if a person had it in the forefront of their mind that they're going to die and enter into the barzakh, when they're going to die and enter into that grave and that barzakh, that period of the barzakh, and his punishment, for the barzakh, where you get punished for backbiting in the barzakh, right? You get punishment for not cleaning yourself after urinating, doing a stinja, right? You would take care to make sure you do those things and you learn those things, right? So, you learn about that. You learn about paradise and hellfire, right? The rewards of paradise. You learn about the sirat, right? That bridge, that little bridge as thin as a hair, and the people in the different speeds they're going to cross across it. The hellfire and all the levels of the hellfire, right? You learn about these things and it's motivational. You learn about about the intercession, where the Prophet ﷺ will intercede for the believers, right? All of these things that you're learning, these things will motivate you and it prompts you to do better. So therefore, when you know this and you learn these things, what happens after that? You begin to treat your family better. You start to become to be honest, right? You start molding and changing your character for the better because you don't want to go to the fire. You don't want the punishment in the grave. You don't want those things. You don't want the light scale, where where it's heavy on the side of you doing wrongdoings, right? You're cautious and careful about what you say because the angels are writing, right? Writing in the scribes, right? So you set up that, so that's the first thing first that you're focused on. Then the next thing after that is that you learn about the rest of the pillars of Islam, right? You learn about the salat, those things that make the salat valid. You learn about tahara, about purification. You learn about facing the qibla. You learn about the times of prayer, right? You learn about those things that are impure. You learn about tayammum. You learn about ghusl, right? You learn about menstruation, right? There's many, how many Muslims, Muslim women, they don't know about menstruation. Sometimes they're thrown off hormonally by the taking of all these birth controls and things of that nature, and then they bleed nonstop. And and they're like, I've had a situation, this is a true situation, where a sister, she felt bad because she'd been like 2 years without praying because she was bleeding nonstop, right? And when did she call and ask for advice on it? She was like, well, my doctor said it's a mens, but I said the Prophet said only 15 days out of that month is a mens, and the other 15 is like extra blood. So you should have been praying, right? And so we went through that whole thing. These things are necessary for you to know, right? Because without prayer, your whole world is off. What did the Prophet say about women because of the fact that they don't pray, that it affects them, right? The nisfa deen. He said that they had practiced half of their deen because that time period when they meant they're not allowed to pray during that time, right? So it affects the mind state. What else you have? Fasting, right? You learn about the ahkam of fasting, the rules pertaining to fasting. You learn about the rules to pay about paying zakat, right? And every man should have the ambition to one day to want to be able to pay zakat. So many of us are content saying, hey, we don't meet the minimum nisab anyway. But then we're also always looking, and turning. Can you imagine you going your whole life and you not contributing to help the Muslim ummah? Will you help someone else? And I was just talking about this in the khutbah Friday, right? That if you think about it, we have this thing, amongst us here in the West, right? Where we sometimes empathize with people doing haram. And we were like, well, if we were able to help them get some money and things of that nature, then we wouldn't have to worry about them, out in the streets, right? Which I understand that, and that's a true statement. But what's intended by it is meaning that sometimes you're justifying that, sometimes we got to do a little wrong in order to get right. Well, a true Muslim wouldn't, encourage that type of thing. If you know your brother is hungry, then you will feed him. That's why the Prophet ﷺ talks about us, it's a horrible thing for you to go to bed at night with a full stomach while your neighbors are suffering and starving, right? So then we should be doing what? Creating things where we're able to feed people and help people, right? If you got a little bit, you give what little bit you can to help the person. Think about it. When they made the hijrah to Medina, the people who were already inhabitants that lived in Medina, right, were helping the people who made hijrah to Medina. They were helping them get on their feet, right? But we're so divided and disconnected from the ummah, we couldn't even possibly think of doing that. So then what we do is we pass off, meaning, inshallah, one of y'all good people out there, we got some sisters that's out here hurting, or or maybe the brother might be out here hurting. That's also another contributing factor too. Sometimes we make a brother feel embarrassed to need assistance when zakat is for everybody, male and female, right? So sometimes we make people and we contribute to the problem instead of us each one taking care of each other and providing. In doing that, this is putting knowledge into practice, right? And then you learn about Hajj when Hajj comes, because knowledge becomes necessary for you to learn the thing before you practice it, right? So Hajj is usually mentioned last. We should learn about buying and selling, learn about marriage and divorce. I promise you, if you learn about marriage and divorce, not how to get divorced, but you'll start to try to avoid getting divorced, right? You'll learn how to not to get divorced. Brothers will stop doing things like divorcing a woman 100 times, right? Because only 3 of that count. The other 97, you're playing with the deen, as Ibn Abbas said, right? We'll start learning those type of things. We'll know what we're responsible for with regards to our families, and maybe it'll motivate some of our brothers, to do better and want better for their family, right? Maybe even with the fact that our sisters know it's the responsibility of the brother, and know if he falls short, he'll be able to help him without later on throwing it in his face and making him feel guilty for what he don't have, right? That's when you have sound knowledge, right? And after you learn that, you go into the mu'amalat and those practices. Then you start studying the science of tasawwuf. Tasawwuf ain't about singing, dancing, dhikr, tawassul, and all that. It's about purifying the heart, removing those blameworthy characteristics, such as being arrogant and conceited, right? That arrogance and that conceit, it destroys you. It destroys you on a knowledge base, because being conceited, ujub, being conceited, you're really denying the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you're arrogant, what happens is a lot of the fitna that you see between brothers that's going back and forth and fighting with each other, a lot of it has to do with arrogance, because he feels he has a particular station, a maqam, where he's calling people to Allah, and he sees someone equal or better than him. If he sees someone better than him or equal to him, he wants to tear him down in the eyes of the people. He ain't got no knowledge. He ain't got no sheikh. You don't know his sheikh. His sheikh is unknown. My sheikh is the man, right? This is true tasawwuf, where you start to practice silence, where you ain't running your mouth all day. You got people that just run their mouth just all day, talk about anything, everything, and everyone, right? They're not worried about the consequences of their tongue particularly, right? Then also with that arrogant person, he can't stop being envious. Because now if you got a higher station in him, he hates you. He's envious of you. He really wants you to lose that. But you're not really mad at him. You're mad at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because Allah ta'ala is the one who actually gives the blessings. These are the things that we need to be concerned about. These are the things that bukhul, being greedy, right? The ummah will be a lot better place if dudes wasn't stingy. Dudes be having the money with the little bit of money they got, but they want to spend the money on themselves, so therefore nobody else matters. I'm not worried about if you ain't got money to get to work, for the next day. I gotta get my new J's. I gotta get these new Dunks that just came out. I gotta get that flat screen TV, right? Meanwhile, I ain't got no money, shit. I ain't got no money. I can't pay, put money together so we can bring someone in the community, to make sure that our families are learning the Quran. This is what you would do collectively, right? Many of us, we want to talk about, we want to revive, we want to bring knowledge to Black Americans and all that. Manson Musa, even non-Muslims know him, right? One of the things that everybody always mentions how much wealth he had, and everywhere he went, he shifted the economy and things of that nature. But one of the things that Manson Musa was responsible for was he brought back scholars to his area in Timbuktu to teach them the deen. That's what we need to be on. Everything else is going to come. But these are the things that's missing because why? Because we're absent. We're missing this. We're not getting it. And so we keep hurting ourselves and we're losing our children. Don't think by a long shot that this slaughterhouse of our young are killing each other, and they're killing each other younger and younger. Don't think that joint is just because the music is used as the tool to do it, but it's the same way that Pharaoh used to kill the young boys and let the women live. There are literally more women than there are Black men. And we're losing them by the minute. This is why you ain't losing them to the bullet. They're becoming gay. And so therefore you start to stump the generations. There's not going to be no reproduction, right? And if you are reproducing them, there's no education. So nothing good is going to come out, and there's just going to be more misfits to the society, and they're either going to be donated to the prisons where they go in there and they work and do labor jobs for no pay or very minimum pay. They give you just enough pay so that you don't call them a slave, which you actually are according to their 13th Amendment, right? Where they lock you up. They also get you to kill. So behind that trigger, you kill a person, but you also go to jail for killing that person. So you knocked out 2 for 1. And then you leave women out here to defend for themselves. And that's kind of chaotic and catastrophic. I can't call it nothing other than what it is. So this is what's happening. And all of this is because we're not putting knowledge into practice in its proper place. I'm going to stop talking because I see Muhammad on there. Let's let Muhammad talk, inshallah. I'm sorry, y'all. Barakallahu feekum.
اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق وهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره مقدار العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. الحمد لله رب العالمين. أفضل الصلاة وتم تسليما على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ورضي الله تعالى عن هذا السادات التابعين علماء عاملين وأئمة أربعين مجتهدين مقلديهم إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. الحمد لله رب العالمين. This topic is hidden to heart. It's hidden to heart because I listened to Amir Khalil in his introduction, and I listened to Abdul Mujeeb piggyback off of Amir Khalil, and I remember I could only reflect on my upbringing, and that we learned this. Anything from Islam that we learned, we put into practice. So I'm part. I'm from a generation to where my parents, they didn't, my parents, they didn't really have the opportunity to actually commit to seeking knowledge. They was real busy and occupied with being soldiers and building than they were to seeking Islamic knowledge. So many of my peers, our parents sent us to learn from teachers, right? And everything that we learned, because of how we raised in our house, that we put into practice immediately. So one of the things that was real beneficial, and I believe this is why I never became Salafi. I never became Salafi. I never got um it was never romanticized to me, and it was simply because of the way that my background is, the things that I had went through, the way my household was set up, that I could tell the difference between a Christian methodology and a methodology that's pseudo Islamic. And what I want to expound on is that pseudo Islamic. You mean my that pseudo Islamic methodology, which is what I was raised in, the Moor Science Temple, at one part of my life. I mean, this was like my my preteen my preteen stage my preteen stage, because it was the only few things that was available to us in learning that. We was considered like the deviants of that pseudo Islamic organization. Reason being because what my cousin brought to the family is that he only utilized certain portions of it, but the stuff that's related to belief about Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, he did away with that. And by the time I was introduced to that, I had already went through the phase of learning what the Nation of Islam believed before 1975, right? Before 1975. I remember being in the masjid for Salatul Fajr, and Samuel Muhammad, Allah Yahamahu. I mean, Elijah Muhammad, one of Elijah Muhammad's oldest sons, he had brought the Muslim prayer book, and this Muslim prayer book, Elijah Muhammad had compiled this book in 1959. This is after they had came back from Mecca, right? This is after they came back from Mecca, when the Saudi government had announced they was going to donate $18 million to the Nation of Islam. It was in 1959. Elijah Muhammad, Jabal Muhammad, Daniel Kareem, and Akbar Muhammad. They all went there, went to Mecca strictly for that purpose. And one of the representatives of the Saudi of the King Saud met them in the courtyard of the Kaaba and asked them about their belief. Right. So with this little book, I looked at it. Well, y'all had this in the 50s. What happened? What actually happened? So when Imam Wardin Muhammad came up with his own religion, because the Nation of Islam was the religion of Elijah Muhammad, and Imam Wardin Muhammad's religion was more allegorical and metaphorical than Elijah Muhammad's belief. His grooming was to take over, not to actually excel in Islamic learning. So a lot of the stuff that he used to talk about, he used to preach. I remember some of them old lectures. You know what I mean, to where he used to say some of the wildest stuff. So as I got older and got into high school, during this particular time was during the Nation of Islam. They was recruiting. Now this was in 1986, 1987, 1988, 1989, and every time these guys would come to the high school and try to talk to the youth. If I was there, I used to crush the dawah. I used to crush the dawah simply because their belief is that Allah Ta'ala is a man. So when the Salafi movement had became popular, and they was talking about Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and having these non-befitting attributes, I equated them the same way as I equated the belief of the Nation of Islam, is that they believe in a man. They believe that Allah Ta'ala is a man. So to believe that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is a man, there's no way that you can get it, that you can properly understand the application and the mu'amalat of al-Islam, and there's no way that you can actually grasp the inner methodology of the internalization of al-Islam, which is tasawwuf. So if it wasn't for tasawwuf, if it wasn't for that, and if it wasn't for me understanding that the Christians are not like the Muslims and we don't hold the same beliefs as the Christians, I would have been a Salafi in the 80s. So the actual practice and internalization of the deen is the purity. It's not just the purity in worship, it's the purity in practice. I may sound like a charismatic preacher right now, but everything that has been said, it's like I'm not expounding on it, but everything is bringing about sources of thought that of my development. The time that we live in now, being a part of a Jamaat is unheard of, right? Having organizational structure is unheard of. Why I come from, organizational structure is equated with being under a leadership and a direction of a goal that we're supposed to establish. However, what we fail to put into realization is that we're dealing with the absence of power. We're dealing with the absence of power. So certain things that are obligatory in Islam for us to implement, we can't implement it. Why? Because the Muslims don't have any power, and the people who are responsible for pushing global agendas in the early 1900s have instilled that the Muslims would never push for Khilafah to be established in the earth until the coming of Imam Mahdi, alayhi salam. So these indoctrinations of different ideas, they're gonna continue. They're gonna continue until we come to the realization that without Jama'at, without giving a bay'ah to a leader, then we're gonna be all over the place. We're all over the place. You know what I'm saying? We hear about a sister strung out on drugs, or a brother abusing his wife, going upside her head like she's in a Mike Tyson fight, because there's no leader to send a squad of brothers over there and tap their butt, or see what's going on in that household, to where why he's putting his hands on our sister. It'll leave our sisters with scars that they carry on into the next marriage. The same thing with the manipulation that brothers go through, with the poor choices of marriage, poor choices that they make of marrying sisters, that not just manipulate what they have learned from Islam, but they manipulate feminism. They manipulate feminism, and they inculcate that into what they've learned from Islam. We don't look at building families. We don't look at building families. We look at polygyny as a taboo. We look at having good and nurturing households and families as a taboo. The nucleus of any Jamaat is the families. Your family is your Jamaat. Part of our responsibilities of being the shepherds of our family is establishing a system, order, and structure that Islam is already established. The Book of Allah is the first is the source and the foundation of that system, order, and structure. That's why in some ayats is very hard to implement them ayats. It's very hard to implement them ayats. Some ayats express and explain the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his mannerisms, how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't return evil with evil. One of the things that undermine beneficial knowledge is hatred. Well, we don't have no love for each other. Envy. Kibr, pride. And Amir Khalil had mentioned kibr, and he had mentioned ujub. Ujub and kibr, they're like a sister and a brother to each other. Ujub individual is so full of himself that he's raised his own self to a station that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never even blessed him with. The Shaykh who Taqaddam Allah bi rahmati Ameen, he had mentioned a destructive trait in his Tariq Jannah, that many of our imams and shuyukh, and I'm talking, when I say imams and shuyukh, I'm talking about imams that are imams by default. They imams by default because they, so Allah Ta'ala has blessed them to learn and acquire knowledge, and they went and studied, and some went and studied, and some learned grassroots, and they never went anywhere and studied. But Allah Ta'ala opened up their heart and their mind for, and blessed them with tawfiq, to where they was able to acquire knowledge, so that where they was able to acquire knowledge, and as a result, many of their students, they don't want their students to outshine them, or to surpass them. The purpose of teaching is for your student to surpass you. And the individual that have this blameworthy characteristic, this individual can never grasp. They can never grasp the reality of not being attached to the dunya. And the name of this destructive trait is hubbul jal, the love of rank. The love of rank. This blameworthy characteristic is so strenuous on the mind of the individual who's afflicted with it, is that this individual believes that he's the only one that is the gatekeeper to knowledge. To the point, this individual may have 50 students. 10 of his students surpass him in knowledge, and he'll deny he was ever their teacher. This is not integrity. This is not integrity. A person who denies his teacher and a teacher who denies his students, these individuals bear observing, or as we say from where I come from, they bear watching.
That's something that's definitely interesting, because mom, man, it's popular now. The academic treachery, and the embellishing of the truth in order to basically establish yourself in a position. And some of that I believe has to do with, like you mentioned, the hubujat, the love of rank, but also a lot of people's income is based on them teaching Islam. And so they see another teacher as their competition rather than aiding and assisting one another in good and khair. They're competing against each other. You know what I'm saying? And most of the time, most people with knowledge, they see two things out of that: money and women. Like, man, if I get up there and talk, man, they gonna have a bunch of women there. Man, they ain't getting some money, because somebody always gonna try to slide you an envelope, and that corrupts the attention, the intentions. And then also clout chasing, riyah. You know what I'm saying? It corrupts you. And the Prophet ﷺ warned us about riyah.
Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
You know what I'm saying? To the point, like sometimes I think this is just my opinion, but it's my observation, what I've seen. A lot of our sisters, they look at women that's uncovered and low key have envy and wish they can do the same thing, rather than seeing that their hijab is a sign of honor. Allah Ta'ala honors women. Matter of fact, Muslim women are braver than most men. Because most men, will argue, we ain't got to dress like the kuffar, but when it comes to women, she got to have everything covered. And then she's on the front line. She out in the workforce. You know what I'm saying? You at home looking for jobs all day, or at least acting like it, right? When you go out, you got on the tight shirt, hoochie daddy shorts. You know what I mean? The coochie print sweatpants. You know what I'm saying? When you going, you going out, right? Meanwhile, her, she's got to go out dressed the way she's dressed. People making mockery of her, calling her names, making jokes about her. Oh, you're a ninja. Why you dressed like that? And those type of things. Meanwhile, we incognito. You know what I mean? Put the baseball cap on. Well, I got my beard. I'm Muslim with a beard. Dude, you ain't traveled around America. Kufar got beards now. Right? So, these type of things. But that person who does it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's nothing that will shake them from moving away from that. But people nowadays, they can't wait for their opportunity and they turn to get naked and get in front of the camera and, and start do their little perky dance. You know what I'm saying? And this is what's happening. You're starting to see it. You see it with all of the, the trends that they be doing on TikTok and social media and stuff. And then you find the Muslims doing the same exact thing. What was that? What was that joint called? The red light challenge or the silhouette joint, where they be dressed one way and then turn the lights off and then you see the silhouette of their body. Muslims was all into that. You see what I'm saying? So the thing is that we love to do what the kuffar do, and then we'll argue and justify it. Some people are so ignorant, at least that they honest in their ignorance. They be like, I was just trying to have fun. I told you we're immature in our thinking. We're not nourishing our soul. So we don't take Islam, serious. We think death is far away. So, Saleh, you got anything you want to mention?
We've been rocking out a little bit, but yeah, just going back to that what you said to inform them of is that we have to just go back to inquiring the knowledge that we need, man. The lack of knowledge is what's causing the destruction of us, period. Right? The lack of knowledge and the knowledge that we are getting, right? For those who, I'm on here with the Maliki brothers, my Tin Hut brothers, that they pray like they're in the military. You know what I mean? I gotta take a shot at them. I mean, they pray like they're in the military, my Tin Hut brothers. But I'm Shafi, you know what I'm saying? And for all of us who are studying a little bit of Shafi fiqh, we have a book called Risalatul Jamia. And right in the beginning of the book, going into, the introduction of it, the shit, he gives a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said that, وَقَالَ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ, and he said, and the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ سَلَكَ طَرِيقًا يَلْتَمِسُ فِيهَا عِلْمًا سَلَكَ اللَّهُ بِهِ طَرِيقًا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ. Right? Where he said that if a person goes out to seek knowledge, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will seek a path of, go out to seek a path of knowledge, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make a path to him for Jannah, to Jannah. So you see how these things go hand in hand, is that seeking knowledge, it makes our path easy to Jannah. It makes our path easy to Jannah. And the person who fears Allah the most is the person who knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to, as Imam Khalil said, that we have to start knowing the Fard Ayn, what is obligatory to know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As he explained, that we must know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists, that he's non-existent, right? That he has no beginning and he has no end. So these are the things we must know, right? And when we know these things, right? When we know these things, and even getting into just the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we learn about these attributes, right? When we learn about these attributes, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, He's Al-Mujeeb, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds. He's the most merciful. When we learn about these attributes and put it in the heart, we tend to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know that He is the most merciful, right? That He will forgive all our sins, even if it, was the, excuse me, forgive me. This cappuccino getting to me. But even that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive us for all our sins. So just knowing this, right? Knowing this, and we mean all our sins besides, shirk. But that should allow us not to be discouraged about the lifestyle that we lived before, right? Because sometimes we go back to the old ways that we were due to us not thinking that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive us, right? So that means that gives us doubt of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not, that we take away from his attributes, right? So when we take about his attributes, as I said, when we learn about these attributes and we take away that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most powerful, that then we know that Allah controls everything, then we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also the turner of hearts. So the things that we did love, or we feel as though that we won't be forgiven, that we had love for before, Allah could change that. We won't love these things anymore. And Allah will show us mercy. So we got to keep this in mind and learn these things and put it in our hearts. And we have to do a deep reflection of what are the things that we are hastening to, right? What are we hastening to, right? And normally we hasten to the things that will cause corruption to the heart, right? That will cause corruption to the heart, that will make the path to Jannah more troublesome, right? It will bring a hardship to this path, all type of obstacles to this path, right? Because we love these type of things. Think about everything we love. Just think about it, right? Now we in a society now when the only thing that matters is if the person got the bag. Does he got money? Or I'm not marrying a person, if they don't got this particular type of money. If they ain't got no money and I got money, I ain't marrying at all. A'udhu billah. So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna commit sin because you don't want to marry? How are you satisfying your needs? So you're openly committing a sin because you're scared of these type of things, right? And you're choosing to commit the sin because of these type of things here, right? So we have to reflect on what are these things we desire? How do we control our nafs, right? Because we're just people who just let our nafs run wild, right? They run wild. You know what I mean? They're just all over the place. So we got to find out these type of things, right? And we also know in the hadith of the Prophet we always say this all the time, right? Right? Seeking knowledge is obligatory for every Muslim man and every Muslim woman. And again, we must know the fard ayn, right? And also know that that the reality of every action that we have is two aspects of it, right? Right? It's two aspects of the action, the action that we have, right? Of the zahir and the batin, right? Of the outer reality and the inner reality, right? The outer reality is that, when we perform the salat, right? We are performing these outer aspects of the bowing, the prostration. The inner reality of it is the khushu'. Learn about this khushu', how we can get the sweetness of faith, how we can taste it, right? Learn about how we establish that, right? Fasting on Monday and Thursday. Learn about these sunnah fasts, right? So we know the outer aspect of it is what? Right? The outer aspect of it is that we're starving ourselves. But the inner aspect of it is that we get closer to Allah, right? That we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We gain taqwa, right? That we gain taqwa by doing these things, right? So we have to learn all these things. We have to learn all these things, right? And as Imam Khalil said, just think about how stingy we are with our wealth. Think about how stingy we are with our wealth, right? Think about it. We hate giving. You know what I mean? We hate giving. It's one thing that, one of the brothers said, that he said that we scream broke. We scream broke. You go to a lot of black masajid, we scream, we ain't got money like that. But he said, if we ain't got money like that, check the shoe rack. Right? Check the shoe rack. And if you look in a masjid of a shoe rack in an African American masjid, we have $300 pair of Jordans, $500 pair of Gucci shoes, $500 pair of Louis Vuitton shoes, $250 LeBron James. We got all these type of luxury things, right? But we scream, but we don't have wealth. We don't have it. We ain't got it. but we spent $200 on some sneakers that we only gonna wear probably 2 or 3 times. Right? So sadaqah, the outer reality of charity is that you're giving your wealth. And the inner reality is that you're purifying, right? You're purifying your property. You're purifying your wealth. Right? A zakat means to purify. All right? So think about all these things. Learn about, just stay away from, not stay away, forgive me, but learn about the outer things that we need to do, but also learn about the inner reality, because this is how we get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Learning about the reward. Learning about the reward. Because we hear so much about the punishment, but what about the reward? Learn about these things, and we will hasten to do good. And we don't hasten to do good because we don't know. We don't know. Right? We're so much involved in invested into fitna that we don't want embetterment with each. We don't want embetterment of the Muslims in whole. Right? We'll destroy everyone around us and make ourselves, as the two beloved elder brothers spoke about, due to envy. We would destroy everyone so we can feed our desires, to feed our nafs. Right? Instead of encouraging each other. So we got to learn these type of things, inshallah ta'ala. Imam Khalil, if you want to get back on, you can get back on if you would like.
I
we can start answering questions.
I got closing remarks. I'm pretty much tapped out.
We can answer them. We can answer. I would like to answer some of them questions though.
Any questions or comments? In the chat. People online listening.
Hold on, man. I got something to say. I got something to say. I want to, touch on just about everything that we have spoke about. But before I do that, I need everybody that's in the chat to share the video. You're watching us on YouTube, share the video. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Now, what I wanted to add, and this is actually my closing remarks. This is actually my closing remarks, and then we can get to some of the comments or some of the any questions that's in the chat box. One of the do all of us understand why having the correct creed is so important? It's the most important part of our deen, of our life. You know why it's so important? Because having the correct creed is reaching and obtaining ma'rifah, knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just knowing his attributes, but having reaching haqiqah, to where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only true reality that is important. Without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, none of us would exist. No knowledge will exist. No creation would exist. This is what is important. Why having the correct creed, the correct belief about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so important. With having the correct creed about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything else falls into play. And even though I use terms like ma'rifah and haqiqah, which are actually tasawwuf terms, they're actually tasawwuf terms. However, they're very important, and actually realizing that Allah subhanahu that we're internalizing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established for all of the mankind from the creation of Adam to Yom Al-Qiyamah. With Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, it was the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfected his deen, and he perfected Islam as a deen for all of us. That's why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the last final prophet and messenger to all of the mankind and the jinn. There was 3 other Arab prophets besides before the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the Prophet but they went to their nations of people. The Prophet ﷺ came for everyone. That's why in the time that we're living in the time of Rasulullah ﷺ. Because Islam is the only deen that Allah Ta'ala will accept until Yom Qiyamah. So fulfilling the outer obligations of the deen, the salah, the khushu' is having ma'rifah. The khushu' is having haqiqah. Realizing that you worship on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah Ta'ala is forever watching you. Taqwa, having taqwa is fearful awareness. Fearful awareness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you wherever you are. Is watching you wherever you are. He knows what's in your heart. He knows what's in your mind. He knows you're a very foul individual. And he knows if you're a very righteous individual. And he's the only possessor and knower of the unseen. Unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give an ability to one of his servants to know the unseen, like the karama of Abu Hanifa, rahmatullah alayhi, to where Allah Ta'ala gave him a karama to where he used to see the sins of the individual. After he make wudu, he see the sins falling off of the individual after he made wudu. He's saying every sin that falls off of the individual to make wudu until he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take that ability from him. The Shaykh Uthman and Fodio to Allah bi rahmati Ameen, one of his karma is that Allah Ta'ala gave him the ability to smell the foul odor of the sin of the individuals that commit sin. And as my brother mentioned mentioned the fasting and the giving zakat, the proof of your iman is that you give sadaqah. Anyone who gives sadaqah, his wealth is never extinguished. A person who has long fingers, they'll never be broke. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuously rewards the individual that give for his pleasure. Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, he sponsored everything for the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He one particular time with the Khilafah of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he left Mecca with a caravan, and when the first elephant or the first camel of the caravan reached the gates of Medina, the last animal of the caravan was leaving Mecca. And when he came into Medina, Medina was shaken to the point where Aisha radiallahu anha came out of her house, and she said, what is this noise? And Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu said, this is the caravan of Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu. And when he reached Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said, I give all of this to the Baitul Mal. Having a Baitul Mal is one of the conditions of collecting the zakat. The Ahlul Sufa, they used to tease Abdurrahman ibn Auf. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he will be crawling across the Sirat. The Sirat is the bridge in the afterlife that you cross the Sirat to go into Jannah. Some will move with the speed of light. Some will move at a steady pace. Some will be moving so slow that they'll fall into the fire. The Sirat is the bridge that goes across the hellfire. The Prophet ﷺ said that Abdurrahman ibn Auf will be crawling on the bridge of Sirat, and this is what Ahlul Sufa, they used to tease him with. So he used to say, well, every time I give, Allah Ta'ala increase me. this was due to the barakah of the dua Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for Abdurrahman ibn Auf. When he died, he had 4 wives, and when he died, after his inheritance was divided amongst his children, he left his wives. Bill Gates rich. When Bill Gates was the richest man in the world, he left them Bill Gates rich. Because of his long fingers, his giving a sadaqah. In the Battle of Kabul, he gave a third of his wealth. Uthman ibn Affan gave a third of his wealth. Umar ibn Khattab gave half of his wealth. Abu Bakr Siddiq who gave all of his wealth. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, "What did you leave for your family?" He said, "I left Allah and His Messenger." So anyone that criticize any Sahaba, not just the 4 that I named, or any Sahaba, this individual bear watching. This individual bear watching. The need for an individual to make Hajj, because you only make Hajj once in a lifetime. You only make Hajj once in a lifetime. But Allah Ta'ala has blessed so many individuals to make Hajj every year. But the true intent to make Hajj is that you make it when you're ready to meet Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. That's why so many people die at Hajj every year. Every salah there's a janazah. Every salah there's a janazah. And many of the ulama, they go make Hajj on the odd years, because on one of the odd years of the Hijrah is one of the years where Imam Mahdi may pop up on the scene. And the people are going to give the bay'ah to him. And he's not going to know that he's the Mahdi. And they're going to explain to him that all of this fitna is happening because of you. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. See, let's look at some of these comments or questions or whatever.
His comments. Hold on, I'm gonna go back because somebody asked a question. Nobody answered it. Let me see, where is it at? I don't want to get too deep, but you know, here you go. But he said, "Go."
Have the Salafi methodology changed over the years or not? The methodology is still the same. They just took a different approach now because they realize themselves. How I feel, they realize themselves that you get more bees with honey instead of turd juice. Right?
Get more bees with honey than flies with.
You know what I mean? So they're taking this softer approach. As you know, you have, you know, I broke this down before to one of the brothers. I said you have the different type of cars, right? It's like the gang banging cars where like you just say if you have the Crip car, you have the blood car, you have the Hoover car, you know, so you have all these cars, right? So the Salafis, they have their different type of car, right? You have the Makhalis, right? They have their own vehicle, right? They're in like they used to be in the Lamborghinis, right? And they used to be driving around in the foreigns, right? But now they're still in a luxury vehicle, right? But then you have now the tall hitters, right? Such as the other Salafis, right? You have the tall hitters, the Mufti, what's his name? Mufti Munirs, the Heartbreak Kid, you know, the of the Islamic community, you know, the Shawn Michaels of the community, Shadi Muhammad. I call him Shawn Michaels, you know what I mean? You have the what's the other brother's
I
name?
call
And
I, I call I call I call I call him Imam Doctor Love.
Dr. Love. Y'all call him Shaw.
Imam Love Doctor.
Yeah, I call him Shawn Michaels. I call him the Heartbreak Kid. You just a sexy boy, sexy. That song on the wrestling joint. I call him Shawn Michaels, right? So they got the foreign cars, right? They got the foreign cars and stuff now. Then you have the Ahl Sunnah. We got our own car, but we got more like the Honda Accords. We got the smart cars, right? The little Teslas. Nobody really can afford to. These cars is expensive cars, but nobody really cared too much about these type of things and stuff like that, right? So with them, they have these different type of cars. So now the toy hairs, they had the approach like, no, everybody's welcome, everybody's welcome. So yes, the methodology is the same, but their approach is different.
No. What advice would you give to be beneficial as a student slash teacher to constantly study, keep yourself in your studies, practice what you learn. If you learn a new hadith, practice it even if you only do it one time, right? And constantly teach the people their obligations. Learn and teach. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Baligu anni walau ayat." Convey for me even if it's only one verse. So you learn, teach, and also do your nuffle, your nuffle actions. Fast Monday and Thursday. Pray tahajjud. Pray your sunnah prayers. Make sure that you're praying your wajib prayers on time as well. Those things. Those are things. The advice I would give, and try to avoid controversy as much as possible. Try to be informed about the controversies that's surrounding you, and learn how you would refute it and build a rebuttal against it. But try to avoid constantly engaging in it because that stuff hardens your heart, and Allah knows best.
And and have sincerity.
And learn Ashri Creed from an Ashri text that has not been compromised by Wahhabiyya.
And have sincerity, man. Know that you're in the teaching, learning and teaching to cultivate others so they can spread the dawah. The problem is a lot of us want to be teachers to be seen as teachers. The internet, we have a million of them now on the internet. Understand you're teaching to cultivate others so they can produce teachers and students so they can spread the dawah. So Islam can spread, right? Islam is about spreading. So
I will only say
Akida to Awam and Jawhara to Tawheed. Them two Ashri texts that has not been compromised by the Wahhabis. They won't
I,
touch them because they
I
too
would
Ashri.
I wouldn't just restrict it to Ashraism though.
I'm
I
just
just
saying though.
any of the creed I just Sunnah.
he bitten, man.
I'm bitten. I'm sounding like Imam Ike. My bad. I wasn't supposed to say that out loud.
So it says, we as the Muslim community, Ummah, we need to put ourselves together like right now. We have a lot of work to do, both individually and collectively. Absolutely. And, it begins by, supporting platforms like this, taking what you learn from here, repackage it and send it back out, you know. Inshallah, learning each one, teach one. We gotta get back to our poor righteous teachers. I got another comment. Here we go. Nice long one too. Man, someone some time ago said the Mahdi already came in 1913 with Jim.
Hey, hey, that's my man. That's my man. CD Nasir.
Yeah, he said it's sad because I'm starting to see more and more Muslims intermix with these deviants and blasphemous teachers as the MSTA. Many are claiming Ahl Sunnah Tasawwuf, calling himself Sheikh Mufti and gaining a following while teaching that Drew Ali is a prophet, and they claim that the silence of Muslims not refuting them is because they have the truth. Billah.
Billah.
Yeah. Yes.
I ain't run into one yet, but we do need to start refuting them Israelites, man. I don't care what nobody say. We need to start building dawah posts and refuting them too, man. We need to turn this like London or something like that, man, because they be all over the place, man.
We used to beat them up, bro. That was our dawah.
Hold on, man. Hold on, they say this dude online saying that the Quran is the Old Testament and the Circle 7 is the New Testament. The circle 7 is the Aquarian Gospel of Levi. The Circle 7 is the Aquarian Gospel of Levi. The first 20 chapters is the Aquarian Gospel of Levi. The other chapters after that is Chinese proverbs.
All right, let's go to the next comment. Now most definitely. Okay, what is MSTA? Someone wants to know.
More Science Temple of America.
There you go. Alhamdulillah. So I'm a Moor myself. Well, there's two type of Moors. There's the Ahl Sunnah Moor, and then there's the MSTA. You know, one is
we need to add a third type of Moor, because you got the Shia Moor.
Really?
Yeah, you know it's MSTA right in North Philly on Broad Street, right?
Shia Moor.
You know it's one right on Broad Street, right?
Yeah, my kid's grandfather is part of the Moor Science Temple. Mm-hmm. I have a okay, here we go. I have a question. Can a Muslim sister be called a sheikha in the deen? Yeah, if she's knowledgeable. No. Sheikha as using as the title? No. Alhamdulillah. Ashri Maliki Mutasawwifi. Alhamdulillah. No one, I haven't been refuting them like me. I'm still refuting them on a constant basis. I didn't know they was still like an issue for real. I ain't know
they be in front of the masjids now.
The Moors.
Oh, the Moors.
He says Moors is our political identity amongst the May tribal people historically. You know that's a topic for discussion. Maybe one day.
It's more of it has metamorphed into a social status than it is than a nationality.
May one day, man.
And the reason why it metamorphed into a social status is simply because they're individuals that's talking about this talking about the straw man and talking about sovereignty and all of this type of stuff. But most of the people that's talking about that stuff, and they try to put in paperwork and all this stuff, they really gonna get themselves locked up for paper terrorism.
Mm-hmm. One day I do actually want to bring some of the Ahl Sunnah Moors on, because I'm not totally against that the identity and things of that nature, because as Muslim Americans or Black Muslim Americans, we have to begin to build a social identity for ourselves. I do agree with that. Whether you line yourselves like as according to the method, in the tribal identity that the Moors do, I think that's something it should be discussed. Inshallah, I'll bring Sidi Nasir on and maybe some other brothers too to talk on the subject. because I don't think it's something that should be ignored. There is an identity because we are in these lands we are ethnic minority, and I think the more
Hey,
that we organize,
hey,
the more we organize ourselves, the more you make a better push and better claim.
I try to reach out. I try to reach out to one of my old mentors. There's it's like I call him the Sheikh Attar. You know, so
Hmm.
he was one of the first he was one of the first brothers. He was one of the first brothers to import oils into the country.
Okay.
And so a lot of the oil shops, like, you know what I'm saying, like Sun Aroma and Fragrance Island and Medina, they copied a lot of his stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Nah.
Most of them, so they all Bengali. You know what I mean? In the Sun Aroma and Medina, them two brothers, Abdullah and Abdullah Abdullah and Muhammad. Every one of them shops they got a Abdullah and Muhammad Bengali, right? So he used to him and his brother, before Islam, they was Moorish American, but they kept the Moorish identity. They Ahlul Sunnah, and you know what I'm saying. He's actually a muqaddam of Sheikh Muhammad Yaqubi.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But at one time, his sheikh, they had Sheikh Abdurrahman, uh, Subhanallah, Sayyidina Muhammad. All at one time they had the same sheikh, Muhammad Yaqubi, him, Sheikh Noor, Sheikh Rami, Imam Zayd, Abdurrahman Shaguri was their sheikh.
Okay. Nah.
I mean, that was all of their sheikh. So I try to reach out to him, you know what I'm saying, and try to bring him on. So he's back in Chicago. He was in Cali, but he's
Okay.
back in Chicago now.
Nah. Yeah, definitely. That's a topic of discussion that's been long overdue because I think especially now while things are quiet, with all of the rhetoric, you don't have to argue about. You shouldn't. We should, at least we won't have on our end argumentation against the brothers from the Morris, Morris, more. I'll call them Morris tribe, just to make that distinction. But the brothers from the Moors tribe, you know what I'm saying? Because before, man, you have brothers that start talking about Moors and they just be like battlefield, like what, bro? We know that there's a difference between the Moorish science, American and the Moor, and I think some of especially some of our younger listeners and our younger generation, because we do reach some of the youth, you know, some of them don't have no understanding of this. You know what I'm saying? So it does. I think so. We're kind of like moving backwards, man. We're getting back to the point now where people, rather be, Johnson and Green and Williams and everything else carrying a slave handlers, tribal stamp. I mean, plantation stamp. So, I think, that's the case. And, people should be encouraged to establish their tribe. And part of that too, that I think that also contributes to our breakup in our families. Because if you don't see your family as your tribe, how you gonna treat it? This ain't working for me. I need a new pair of shoes. I don't like the way they feel. Next, right? But if you feel like you begging, building a legacy, you'll hold on to that thing. You'll fight as hard as you can to it. And if it fades, then at least you left that imprint on your family, on your children. What you were trying to establish, especially as a man. I think it will help put our brothers back in the forefront. You know what I'm saying? In their families, they're playing their role as that shepherd in the family. And Allah knows best. But I definitely want to have that in the near future, inshallah. So I'll be reaching out to you, City.
Hey,
know.
one thing though the one thing that I have to point out
Mm-hmm.
is that when engaging individuals from the Moor Science Temple of America, and you're talking about Islam, especially with things dealing with the creed and with the final messengership of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam,
Hold on.
when they're backed up into a corner, they they make a disclaimer, say that we Muslims, we're not Muslim. You follow me? But
Mm-hmm.
the Muslims that's Ahlul Sunnah that identifies Moors, they only identified as their nationality. You know what I'm saying? And they identify. They still don't acknowledge themselves as being
Alaikum
black.
salam for the cattle.
As being black. They don't
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge themselves as being uh anything that's related to a social status. You follow what I'm saying? Because the purpose of learning your nationality, you know what I'm saying, learning your lineage is so that you can be recognized not by the governments but by the UN. You know, by the UN, or during that time it was the League of Nations. So the League of
Mm-hmm.
Nations would not acknowledge you as a black people. Black people is not an identity. Black
Right.
people, black is not a nation of people. White is not a nation of people. You follow me? You know what I'm saying?
Now,
They identify with being from a nation of people. That's why in Malcolm X's political ideology, he coined New African
right.
in his political philosophy, and
Mm.
in coining New African, he identified the New African Muslims and just the New Africans that's not Muslim. And that,
Right.
and that, and that's one of the things I want to also get a mirror shot on here too, so he can break a lot of this, a lot of the a lot of the political points of views of Al Islam, and
Absolutely. We have all this to offer, Sheikh. We trying to, educate people, Dean wise. It's always gonna be Dean. All of this stuff is related to Dean. But you have to open people's, minds up, to certain things, especially with political agenda. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you out here just out here voting willy nilly like you part of the society, I feel sorry for you. Right? That's just my own personal opinion. If you running around here not having any type of identity, knowledge of self, no knowledge of, your background or anything like that, that's a bad thing.
I
But if
think I
you
think I got some. One of my relatives was Jewish, man. If so, I'm gonna try to give me some money. I think on my father's side, from my understanding, he's a Franks, right? So we got this crazy nose. So if I find out, I'm telling you, I'm milking him. I'm getting some money. You hear me? All right. The Holocaust, give me my money.
Bro, they gonna write you off. You see how they did Abdullah ibn Salam?
Well, I
When
need my
before
money. You
the
hear me?
Prophet tell him, hey, he said, what do you think Abdullah ibn Salam? It was, oh, he's the best of us. He's the son of the best of us. He said, what if I told you he was Muslim? Oh,
hey,
he's the worst of us. He's the son of the worst of us. You
hey,
go
hey,
ahead in
hey,
there with
hey,
your
hey,
kufi
Abdul,
on.
hey, Abdul, hey, Abdul Majid, Abdul Majid, the man Ashri was born Jewish.
Yo, listen.
The man
Yeah,
Ashri Yusuf was born Jewish.
listen, y'all gonna see me cut. Y'all gonna see me come up to Uthman done the photo masjid looking like Shine when he first came out. I'm gonna have the curls with that.
Astaghfirullah to
That's
it,
what all it is. Yeah.
man.
You gonna have locks, huh?
I'm telling you, I'm getting me some money. I'm like, Abdul Mujeeb tripping.
Oh man, before we get out of here, y'all, while y'all still listening, inshallah, we
Oh
starting
man.
next week. We got about 3-4 programs coming on, gonna be here on our channel, the podcast, and well, the Tajdi the Sunnah channel, on YouTube, and Mass Youth Mandan Fodio on Insta, Facebook, you know. Inshallah. And yo, I just found out now StreamYard, you can StreamYard on Instagram. So we're gonna be on there. I'll probably link it to my personal page, inshallah. So you're gonna be able to watch it on Instagram as well now, inshallah. So but yeah, we're gonna have the purification of the heart. We're gonna have it on the 29th. We're gonna have about the I forgot the actual title, but it's about building that protected friendship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're gonna get spiritual that night, and then on Saturday, the 30th, we're gonna have the discussion on rebuilding, like that suhbah, that camaraderie, rebuilding and bringing that thing back, making it have that brotherhood that the Sahabas had, inshallah. So it'll be streamed live as well. We'll also be in person at Masjid Muhammad here in Philadelphia. So come through with us. We had some food there, probably bust a grub. Chop it up,
What
inshallah.
what day we gonna be at Masjid Muhammad?
December 30th. That's a Saturday.
Oh, okay. So since that's December 30th, I'll be turning 38, y'all. So they'll peep this, right? I still need my Apple Pen, right? So
Nah.
since we're gonna be giving it, y'all donate, please. The Apple Pen, you can look on Amazon. There you go. That'd be my gift.
Oh, you say you got Orange, New Jersey in the house? How many live? When I'm in Jersey, I should be in Jersey next month, inshallah. Masjid Beit Khalid, at on Chancellor Ave in Newark, inshallah. Pull up, come through, man. Come check us out. I'll post it out, put it out here, inshallah. You can come through, inshallah. You know. Inshallah, come through. Come visit us on the 30th, inshallah. But if not, I'll be in Jersey, inshallah. I'll definitely be in Jersey. Inshallah. Alaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh,
Yeah, I'm
brother.
in Jersey, brother. Whoever's in North, you can come down here. I'm in
Islam,
Jersey myself, man.
Allah bless each and every one of you, fam. Ameen. Yes, that's Maliki, man. Shit, Beto Khalik. Now, inshallah. So, inshallah, I look forward to seeing you when I'm up there, inshallah. I'll in the group and stuff like that. I'll post it. I'll have the flyer. Just be on the lookout for the flyer, inshallah. I gotta like set up the date. I'm supposed to come up there, do the Juma khutbah and do a lecture too, inshallah. So I'll be up there for the day. Maybe we can sit down and get some grub, inshallah. Usually when I come up there, we usually eat good. So, you know. And they also got Sheikh Drama there as well. Inshallah, Hafiz the Quran and very knowledgeable of Islamic sciences. So inshallah, if you're able to, swing through, benefit from the brother as well, inshallah. Barakallahu fikum. So any other closing remarks?
That's
Nah,
it.
nah.
Hold on,
I'm remarked out.
Hold on.
It's a
All these years, they told me that my shit was bid'ah, Wahhabi rhetoric.
yeah. Uh-huh.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك ونتوب إليك. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والقاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق وهادي إلى صراط المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره مقدار العظيم. سبحان
Alhamdulillah.
ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم آمين.
Ameen.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Remember, like, share, subscribe, share, share it to your pages, share it to your groups. I shared it to like maybe 10 groups while we were sitting here doing the podcast. So
Alhamdulillah.
you know what I mean. So everybody share it to your platform, share it to your groups. I even shared it to one of the 3453 groups. I don't know if it's gonna
Okay.
get posted though.
Hey, inshallah, maybe I'm planning on it. We're gonna do something, inshallah, where we have a little like we would teach, a couple of books of creed or something like that, on the platform, inshallah. All right. All right. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Malik Salam.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.